It was a chilling, stomach-churning affair that left even seasoned investigators unsettled, a grim tableau of human darkness. Let's rewind to Singapore, 9:15 a.m. on June 16, 2005. A 27-year-old sanitation worker named Murugan Kanapan was doing his usual routine by the Kallang River when he stumbled upon a brown cardboard box. The box was wet and taped shut with duct tape. When Murugan picked it up to toss it, it fell apart, revealing some newspapers and a green nylon bag. He opened the bag and was shocked to find a woman's lower body wrapped in newspapers. He immediately ran to report it to the police. What on earth happened by the Kallang River? Who could commit such a terrible act? This was one of the most shocking events in Singapore in 2005, a dismemberment murder case right by the river. On that Thursday morning, police units quickly showed up and set up ropes to investigate. They found that the woman's lower body was completely severed at the hips and knees. Murugan described it as looking like a fresh piece of meat, so fresh it resembled a bloodless mannequin. The knee bones were visible, leaving onlookers in shock, wondering who could do something like this. By around 10:30 a.m., a forensic pathologist got a call from the police asking for help at Kallang River Park. The police expanded their search in the area, thinking there might be more to find. Just a few hours later, on the opposite bank, about 200 meters away, another team discovered a red and white Canon printer box containing the upper torso of a woman, severed from the waist up to the neck. This part was also wrapped in newspapers and a green nylon bag. Some of the newspapers were from Lianhe Wanbao, a local Chinese-language newspaper. The forensic expert confirmed that both body parts belonged to the same woman, with the cuts being precise and clean, almost like a professional butcher did it. Identifying the victim was tricky since the head and legs were still missing. Luckily, the upper body still had both arms and hands, so they sent those to the forensic center to get fingerprints. A few hours later, they identified the victim as a 22-year-old woman named Liu Hong Mei from Chuangshuan, Cat Lam province in China, who was working in Singapore. The police quickly began investigating her whereabouts before her murder, starting with her apartment. They found out that Liu Hong Mei worked as a production manager at a factory owned by Ager Systems, which makes semiconductor components. When the police checked with her co-workers, they learned that Liu Hong Mei hadn't shown up for her night shift the day before, on June 15th. They spoke to Puno Tan, a supervisor who had worked with her, and he mentioned that the last time he saw her was a few days earlier at a company family day event. This raised some eyebrows. Did Puno Tan have anything to do with her disappearance? He also noted that he used to be in charge of her, but now it was Liang Xiuchor. Liang Xiuchor, a 50-year-old supervisor, had switched to managing the group that Liu Hong Mei was now in charge of. The police brought Liang in for questioning, but didn't mention they had found her body. When they asked about his relationship with her, he insisted, "I'm just her supervisor, there's nothing else." But was that really the case? The police uncovered some interesting info at the factory, a promotion request for Liu Hong Mei submitted by Liang on June 13, 2004. She had been with the company since 2003 and had been promoted twice in just 2 years. There was also a document from September 27, 2004, warning Liu Hong Mei about being too close with her supervisor. When the police dug deeper, some employees recalled that on September 14, 2004, they caught Liu Hong Mei and Liang Xiuchor kissing in his office. After that, they received a reprimand, but Liang claimed it was just because it was her birthday and he lost control. After that, they seemed to keep their relationship under wraps, but everyone knew Liang was married with 3 kids, including a daughter older than Liu Hong Mei. When the police questioned Liang, he acted strangely and had cuts on his fingers. When asked how he got hurt, he said he was fixing some pipes at home. His odd behavior and the connection to the victim made the police suspicious, so they handcuffed him right there at the factory and took him in for further questioning. Was Liang Xiuchor really the murderer? What was going on between him and Liu Hong Mei? He kept quiet because he knew the police needed solid evidence to charge him, but little did he know they already had enough to prove his close relationship with her. After about 10 hours of interrogation, at 4:40 a.m. on June 17th, Liang finally cracked and confessed everything. When asked about his schedule on June 15th, he said, "My wife and eldest daughter were in Thailand on vacation. I was home alone and she came to see me around 9:50 a.m. He admitted this was the first time Liu Hong Mei had come to his place. They had been having an affair for about a year, starting in mid-2004, Everyone knew Liang was married, so why was Liu Hong Mei okay with being the other woman? A matchmaking center boss, Li Qianhua, told the police that Liu Hong Mei had called looking for a long-term partner in Singapore. He remembered her as gentle and polite, wanting to marry soon, and he had introduced her to 5 potential candidates. Liu Hong Mei was really worried, and in the end, she chose Liang Xiuchor. At first, she had no idea he was married. They were both pretty vague about things for a few months, and it was only on the morning of a big incident that she found out. Liu Hong Mei had gone to Liang's place to sort things out between them, hoping they could go back to China and start fresh together. But then Liang suddenly thought about his family and said he didn't want to leave them behind. They ended up arguing loudly because Liu Hong Mei didn't want to be stuck in a relationship that went nowhere. In a moment of desperation, she told him, "If we're not together in this life, we should die together and be together forever in the next one." This shocked Liang, but he agreed to help her with whatever she needed. Then things took a dark turn. Liang looked around and noticed a big bath towel wrapped around her neck, and as he tightened it, he saw her face change color. He realized she was dead and panicked. He quickly dragged her body into the bathroom and decided to dismember her. 2 days later, on June 18th, Liang was charged with murder. Lieutenant Lam, who was in charge of the case, along with his team, headed to Liang's apartment at 114, Lane 3, Kallang area. Reporters and police swarmed the place, and they found lots of evidence, including a broken meat cleaver, rubber gloves, and the bath towel that was likely used to strangle Liu Hong Mei. They also discovered some missing pages from Chinese newspapers, adhesive tape, and green nylon bags. In the son's bedroom, they found some yellow Art Dot Friend brand nylon bags that matched what was used to wrap up the body parts. When they checked the bathroom, it looked suspiciously clean, no blood or dirt anywhere. But Lieutenant Lam, drawing from his experience with similar cases, knew that dismemberment often leaves hidden blood traces. He checked under the sink and found a tiny blood spot, then spotted more blood on a bicycle in the living room. They gathered all the physical evidence, but could only find 2 body parts of Liu Hong Mei. The head and legs were still missing. Liang claimed he tossed them into the Singapore River near Clark Quay. Given the slow flow of the river, the heavy bag wouldn't have drifted far, but despite extensive searches by the police and special forces, nothing turned up. To find the missing parts, Major Lam spoke with cleaners at Clark Quay, who said their garbage was collected and sent to a barge outside Sisters Island. Major Lam enlisted the Coast Guard to check the barge, but when they got there, it was empty. They learned that the garbage usually gets taken to the Tuas incineration plant. Major Lam called the plant to halt any incineration, and police teams arrived to sift through tons of garbage. After hours of searching, Major Lam caught a whiff of something foul and followed it to find the victim's head and legs in bags wrapped in yellow and green nylon, along with some newspaper clippings. It was hard to believe how Liang could dismember the body so neatly. As a paper shredder supervisor, he had the skills, but his method was shocking. He confessed that when he started cutting from the ankles up, his knife wasn't strong enough for the knee joint, so he got a rubber mallet to help break the bones. During the investigation of Liu Hong Mei's body parts, they found tiny metal fragments that matched up with a piece of the blade they found, confirming her identity. There were also signs that raised eyebrows during the forensic exam, like a cut in the genital area, which made it look like she might have been assaulted. However, they found no evidence of that. The cut happened after she was dead. There were no signs of struggle, and her neck didn't show any marks of strangulation, which was odd since Liang had said he used a towel. The forensic team wondered if she might have been unconscious from alcohol or drugs, but all tests came back negative. Right after Liang cut her lower body off, he flushed her internal organs down the toilet, not realizing he left bloodstains behind. The forensic team collected DNA from various surfaces in the bathroom and even from the red clogs Liang used to dismember her. They had 280 photos as evidence for the case. So why did Liang go through all that trouble to dismember Liu Hong Mei? Tai Yi-din, a behavioral psychologist at the Ministry of Interior, said that when it comes to dismemberment in a murder case, a real killer can dismember the victim for various reasons, and they have a wide range of terms for them. However, to distinguish more clearly, there are 2 cases. The first is dismemberment with an offensive nature, and the second is dismemberment with a defensive nature. Speaking of dismemberment with a defensive nature, it is a behavior that serves a practical purpose of the killer rather than an emotional purpose. On the other hand, in the case of dismemberment with an offensive nature, it occurs when dismemberment is carried out to release pent-up hatred towards the victim to satisfy the killer's emotions, sometimes to seek power or to seek sexual satisfaction. In the case of Liang Xiuqiu, they believe it serves a practical purpose, which is dismemberment with a defensive nature. Especially in Singapore, a very small and densely populated city where security is closely monitored, it is not only difficult for him to find a disposal location, but also very difficult for him to transport the body. Liang Xiuqiu quickly packed the body parts of Liu Hong Mei into boxes and put them on the bicycle to dispose of them before the children came home from school at 6 p.m. He then rode the bike to UBI Road to throw Liu Hong Mei's feet and clothes into the trash bin, then parked the bike and took a taxi to the Singapore River to discard the head and 2 calves, continuing to the Kallang River near his house to dispose of the upper and lower body. He returned home at 5 p.m., realizing he still had time, so he put the blood-stained clothes in the washing machine and poured bleach into the toilet to clean up once again, even using a grinding stone and a planer to try to remove the blood and cuts on the knife. After all these tasks, Liang Xiuqiu had no time to shower, quickly put on work clothes, and hurried out of the house. As he was getting ready for work, he noticed Liu Hong Mei's backpack had fallen to the floor, so he put it in a plastic bag and threw it outside the Ang Mo Kio MRT station on the way to the factory. By 7:30 p.m., when the attendance check began at work, they noted 2 people were absent that day, including Liu Hong Mei. Liang Xiuqiu also pretended to ask a colleague to call Miss Liu, and he knew the result of this call was futile. At the crime scene inside their private home, they also found Liang Xiuqiu's work clothes from that evening, which were stained with blood. Those involved wondered why he could be so cruel. Would dismembering and disposing of this lover reveal anything about Liang Xiuqiu's true nature? Liang Xiuqiu was born on April 19, 1955 in Singapore. He grew up with an identical twin brother. He got married and had 3 children after completing his pre-university program and military service. He joined Singtel as an employee and stayed with the company for about 20 years. During this time, Liang Xiuqiu studied and worked, graduating from the Singapore Polytechnic in 1983 with a degree in electronics and telecommunications engineering. In February 1996, he left Singtel to start his own unsuccessful company. Finally, in April 1997, he became a production supervisor at Lucent Technologies, later restructured and renamed Agier Systems. Liang Xiuqiu worked at a factory on North Avenue 5, Serangoon area, where he met Liu Hong Mei. He had a fixed shift from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next day. With over 10 subordinates under his supervision, by May 2005, his monthly base salary was 3,743 Singapore dollars. According to family, friends, and acquaintances, Mr. Liang was described as a loving father and husband who cared deeply for his family. He was known to be gentle and non-violent. A year after his arrest, Liang Xiuqiu appeared in court multiple times, defended by the highly renowned criminal lawyer Subhas Anandan. At that time, Subhas had been working with Liang Xiuqiu for almost 10 months. When he took on such a major case, they had to be extremely attentive. When he first met Liang Xiuqiu, he could not believe that a middle-aged man with a normal appearance like him could commit such acts. Even when he spoke about what he had done, lawyers still thought he was very gentle. Subhas said they would do their best to help him, but every time Subhas tried to gather evidence related to his mental state to mitigate his charges, he found that Liang Xiuqiu was completely sane. Despite appearing extremely calm in every court session, he showed no signs of anger, arrogance, remorse, unlike in other cases. He almost showed no emotions in court, not resembling a normal person. The only and most solid defense they had was the mutual agreement to end the life of Liu Hong Mei in the early days of the trial. Although Subhas was shocked to see the prosecution present 280 pieces of evidence, he remained steadfast and focused on the victim's agreement. The prosecutor asked how he used the scarf to kill Liu. Subhas then instructed Sunil to stand in front of him, and they handed him a real scarf. He then wrapped the scarf around Sunil's neck and demonstrated how he strangled Liu to death. However, Professor Truong pointed out a notable fact that Liu Hong Mei may not have been strangled from the front, as it would have been much more difficult for him to cross the two ends of the scarf in front of the victim's neck. If he had tightened the two ends of the scarf in front of the neck, the force he could exert would have been much less than if he had strangled her from behind. Therefore, Professor Truong told the police that it was highly likely that Liu Hong Mei was strangled suddenly and unexpectedly, leaving her no time to resist. However, all the evidence was not strong enough and not convincing enough for that so-called mutual agreement to end her life. So the question remains, did Liu Hong Mei really want to end her life for that reason? Liu Hong Mei is the third child in a family of 4 in Truongshuan City. She is very frugal, saving all the money she earns and sending it home every 3 months. In mid-2003, Liu Hong Mei took over her sister's job in Singapore. The two sisters worked diligently and met twice a week. The last phone conversation they had was on June 14th, just one day before the incident. However, the older sister had no idea about her younger sister's relationship outside of work. On April 24th, 2005, the older sister found a brother-in-law in Singapore and planned to get married. The wedding is scheduled for September of this year. Liu Hong Mei is especially looking forward to that day to become a daughter-in-law. In addition, the English language center she enrolled in when she first arrived to work has stated that Liu Hong Mei is confident about her recent English exam and plans to obtain additional certificates. As seen, this girl had no reason to end her life in such a senseless way. Furthermore, investigators discovered that 2 days before Liu Hong Mei was killed, she reported to the police that her ATM card was missing. When the police investigated Liu Hong Mei's transaction records, they found that her account had been stolen over $2,000 at various locations in Singapore. They quickly checked the CCTV footage around the ATMs where the transactions took place and captured images of a slim man wearing a baseball cap and a hoodie jacket conducting the transactions. Coincidentally, these items were also found at his residence. When investigators questioned him, the man said, "It was just a joke." On June 13th, I and she went to a hotel after having a relationship. Then I wanted to find a whip, but because at that time Liu Hong Mei was taking a shower, it was inconvenient, so I searched for it in her bag. But the next day, I also returned the card and the money to her. He thought he could easily fool the police like that, but in just these 2 words of his joke, they discovered 3 contradictions. First, the money he said he returned was not found in Liu Hong Mei's house. Second, if she had been returned the money and got the card back, she would not have called the police to report the lost card on the 14th. Third, his method of withdrawing money did not seem like a joke. On June 13th, he successfully withdrew money 4 times from 4 different places. The first time he withdrew $1,000, the second time $100, the third time he tried to withdraw $1,000 but failed. The fourth time was also $1,000 and also failed. He used Liu Hong Mei's card to make a purchase of $14.40 worth of groceries. The next day, he disguised himself and successfully withdrew $960. After knowing they had this evidence, he realized the upcoming trial would be unfavorable for him, so he decided to confess everything. That on the night of June 14th, when Liu Hong Mei texted him about the police checking the ATM card and she would go see it the next day, he was afraid of this. So he texted her back and said if she was going the next day, she should come to his house. He wanted both of them to go together, but in reality, he had planned to kill Liu Hong Mei. He thought he had sincerely confessed, so he hoped to have his sentence reduced, but in the end, the judge of the court on the 19th of October 2006 issued a verdict without leniency for him and convicted him of murder along with 5 other charges. He officially received the death penalty, and immediately after that, he appealed twice to the appellate court, but was both rejected. He even once sent a request for clemency to the president of Singapore and was also denied. In the final days before being executed, he appeared calm and ready to face his fate. He expressed this by sharing his last meal with his fellow inmates and even requested to voluntarily donate his organs after death. The funeral of Liu Hong Mei was held on the 11th of October 2005 with the participation of 150 people, including those who sympathized with him to those who were curious. Some even came to ask for lucky numbers. The funeral was organized by Mr. Trin Hai Huyen and his wife. Mr. Trin said he felt very sorry for this girl. After the body parts were sewn back together, even though Liu Hong Mei's feet were never found, Mr. Trin also made a pair of wax feet to attach to her body. Until November 30th, 2007, the death penalty was carried out on Leong Siu-chor by hanging at Changi Prison at dawn at the age of 52. Ending one of the most shocking cases in Singapore at that time, although the case was closed, many people still haunted by recalling this detail that it was about a painting depicting him demonstrating in court how he strangled the victim with a scarf, but with a very strange smile on his face.